What should you do when your opponent grabs all the central space themselves, hogging it with pawn after pawn after pawn, and leaving us gasping for breath in a cramped middle game? Now, help is at hand with another Paul Morphy miniature. You see, Paul Morphy was so much better than all the other players of his time that he could often beat them even with material odds. But in this game, well, he decided he wanted to use all of his pieces to finish off James McConnell playing as white. Paul Morphy played the French defence, maybe in tribute to New Orleans where this was played. Okay, it was a joke because of Orléans being in France, New Orleans being in America. Anyway, let's focus on the chess, where McConnell decided not to be a scaredy cat and play the exchange French, swap all the pieces and try to make a draw. He grabbed that space with e5. We had c5, c3, knight c6, firing everything at that pawn on d4. And nowadays we know that white should play knight f3 and defend the pawn on d4. Maybe also grab a bit of space on the queen side a bit later with some a3 and with some b4 business. But McConnell says, no, I want it all. I want all the space I can get. And with f4, he played his fifth pawn move in 5 moves. Now, you know the drill in these positions. We hammer down that d4 pawn with everything we've got. So we had queen to b6, white defended it with knight to f3. And now you have a chance to improve on Paul Morphy's play. So Morphy played a developing move, but can you find the best developing move for black in this position? Pause the video if you need more time to think about it. Well done if you found the move knight to h6. Yeah, that knight's on the edge of the board, sitting a bit quietly, but we're ready to go knight f5 and hammer down on that d4 pawn. And if white even just plays some move like a3, for example, well, already we could take that pawn and gang up on it with knight f5 with 3 attackers to white's 2 defenders. And just like that, that d4 pawn is soon to become a passed pawn. Not a passed pawn, but a pawn that will not last much longer. So instead, black played the move bishop d7, a quiet developing move, saying to white, okay, I'll give you a bit more rope to hang yourself at this position. So rather than trying to get some pieces out with something like knight a3 or bishop e2 or something, instead we had the move a3, where this guy really loves pushing his pawns. He just wants to take the space on the queen side and the king side and the center. I mean, maybe he thinks this is a game like Settlers of Catan. We've got to grab all the space you can. But Morphy said, no, this is chess that we're playing here. So he played knight to h6. We saw that idea before. White grabbed the space with b4. We had yum-yums, c takes d4, c takes d4. And here, McConnell's idea was that if you play knight to f5, white will play bishop to b2 and keep that d4 strong point nice and well defended. Now, the observant among you may have noticed that black has a really nice shot in this position to get a big advantage. Can you see what Morphy missed? Congratulations if you saw that this is the good bishop and this is white's bad bishop. And then we just remove that bishop with the knight e3 fork. And bam, after knight takes f1, we can see that white's light squares are pretty much like Swiss cheese in this position. You can even slide that knight over and invade with the bishop and really wreak all kinds of havoc in the white position using their weak light squares to finish them off. But Morphy decided to stretch the game out a bit and toy a little with his opponent, bring another piece in the game with rook c8, putting that rook along the open file. Now after bishop b2 and knight to f5. So white moved his queen in this position. Where do you think white moved the queen to? Now if white had his self-preservation instincts in tow, he would have probably played queen d2, and it looks ugly because the knight can't even go to c3 easily without the d pawn being ripe for plucking. But even so, this was probably the best way for white to try to defend. I mean, black can still develop and you can still open the center, and the white king will be sweating bullets in the center for sure. But instead we had queen to d3, a move that looks natural but has a fatal flaw, and Morphy pounced on this position. Do you see the move that he played here? Pause the video if you need time to think of how to play like the great Paul Morphy. Congratulations if you found bishop takes b4 exclamation mark. We sack the bishop, so after a takes b4, which way do we take? We take with the knight, hitting that queen, and that's not all. Also threatening to slide that knight into c2, so if they play queen d1, we bring the knight in and we say, well, thanks for the game, it was a pleasure crushing you with the French defense. But white decided he wanted even more ignominious loss than this. He went queen to d2, and yeah, you can just win with knight c2, but Morphy wanted to really crush his opponent. So he played rook c2, rook on the 7th rank. Where's that queen going to go? He put on d1, and okay, you probably want to take that bishop and get your material back and have a decisive material advantage. But what if I told you there's an even better move that Paul Morphy played here? So the move that Morphy played to finish this game was knight e3, and then it's lights out. White resigned here because you just don't have anywhere safe to move the queen as white. You go to d3, the knight will say thank you for the feast. And with this, we can see exactly what black is aiming for when you play the French defense. It's sure that white got a bit too greedy and tried not only to have his cake and eat it, but to have the cherries, the ice cream, the waffles, the raspberry fool, the whole works. And when you try to grab all that space without having the pieces behind it to defend it, well, we saw that those pawns ended up being more of a weakness for white rather than a strength. And he couldn't cover all the territory that he tried to claim for himself because he just didn't have enough foot soldiers in the fight. And we saw for black some really great ideas of how to attack that d4 pawn, not just with one knight, but with two knights and also the queen. And all it took was a couple of mistakes by white and his center just went kaput. So thanks for watching this video. Please leave a like and a subscribe so you can follow my content. Love to any ways can make these videos even more interesting and useful for you, because, well, I want you to improve your chess as much as possible. We're going to have a great journey together in making you the best chess player you can be. And I will see you in the next video.